Hello there. So this tutorial is going to talk about how to use Ultimate Brain on a day-to-day basis. And I'm going to start this out by letting you know there is now a demo version of Ultimate Brain. It's read-only. You can't duplicate it into your own workspace, but you can browse at your heart's convenience. Is that a word? At your heart's content to see some demo content inside of Ultimate Brain so you can see how you'd actually use it. You're going to see example tasks, example notes, all kinds of good stuff. And we're going to use this example demo version of the template in this tutorial to actually show you how you might use Ultimate Brain in a day-to-day context. So the main thing that I want to state up front before we get into the nitty-gritty is that Ultimate Brain is really meant for flexibility. It's meant to be used the way that you want it to be used. So what that means is, while it does support productivity and organizational methods like PARA, which is Tiago Forte's method, or getting things done, which is David Allen's method, it also supports more classical methods, just dumping notes into your note inbox, favoriting things, looking at your recents area, dumping tasks into your task inbox, and then checking them off as you see fit, adding them to your calendar. There really isn't a wrong way to use Ultimate Brain. You can simply, use it in the very simple ways that I just said. You can use those more advanced productivity methodologies. You can set up a ton of different resources and areas. It's kind of your tool. And that was my intent when designing it. I didn't want to lock you in to any particular productivity methodology or philosophy. Instead, I wanted to build a flexible tool that has just enough structure to enable you to do things like, see tasks based on an inbox view or a today view or a getting things done style view, that kind of thing. So explore, start, just trying things out and see what works for you. Maybe try a GTD workflow for a while, try PARA, and, try more simple ways. That being said, when you first get Ultimate Brain set up, you're going to see this dashboard. And what I would actually recommend doing is adding your most used pages to your favorites. So on any page, let's just say the notes page here, you can go up to the star icon right in the top right corner, and you can add it to your favorites bar. And in doing this, maybe with the notes page, maybe with quick capture, maybe with your favorite task view, so perhaps your today view, you're gonna build a really easily accessed list of all of the pages that you like most and that you use most often. There's also a bit of a more advanced way to do this inside of Ultimate Brain, and that has to do with the Quick Links page right down here. So what Quick Links is a page that literally just contains links to other pages in the workspace. And these are actually page links, not mentions. So when you copy a page's URL to your clipboard with Control-L or Command-L on a Mac, and you paste it, I'm going to show you right now, you get the option to either mention it or link to it. Well, if you mention it, that's called an inline link, and that's going to show on the page, but it will not show in your sidebar. But if you link to it, that's an actual link block, and it's actually going to link in your sidebar. So if I open up my Quick Links page now, I will see this goals page that I just added to the page content. And if I drag it inside of this red outlined block, which is a synced block, I will also see it on my dashboard down here, so I can access it there as well. So what I would do personally is favorite that Quick Links page, and what that does is it gets me a link in my favorites bar that I can toggle open to find these things that I'm constantly going back and forth to, but I can also keep it closed to keep my favorites bar nice and tidy. So that's a good way to kind of set things up so you can access your most important or most frequently used pages. And from there, you kind of want to use Ultimate Brain to facilitate the workflow you already have. So where that would start, in my opinion, is with capturing the things that come into your life. If you're going to have an external system, something that you trust to offload things out of your brain, be they tasks or events or ideas, then you have to get them into that external system somehow. Well, the quick capture page is the most useful page for that purpose, I think, especially if you're on the go and you don't want to navigate to a specific resource or a specific area or a specific project to capture something. If you capture it here, you can process it later and make sure it gets to where it needs to go. So what I might recommend doing again is favoriting this. If you have a phone, like an Android phone or an iPhone, there are actually Notion widgets, and you can choose a specific page to put on that widget. And I would put the quick capture page on the widget personally. That's what I've done for my own phone. And that way, when I'm on the go, I can, boom, open up quick capture and I can capture a task or I can capture a note. Now, the One little special thing about the quick capture page is tasks and notes that you capture here are only going to show here for 24 hours. And the point there is to have this page be nice and clean and minimalistic anytime you open it. So it's not, a case where you open it and there's a bunch of different tasks because you haven't been able to process them in a while. Those will always be on your task inbox and your note inbox, but the quick capture page is always going to be nice and clean because it clears itself after 24 hours. So if I add something here, like let's just say pick up my dry cleaning. And I don't have dry cleaning, so I don't actually have to do this, but it's a good test task. I'm gonna see it here, and then if I go over to my task inbox, I will also see it down here, pick up my dry cleaning. So the inbox here, this is the classical task inbox, is going to hold any tasks that have not been given a project or a getting things done style smart list. And again, in the actual template, you're gonna see a call out here, which will explain how that works. So just like with tasks, I would do the same thing with notes. If you have a note that you want to capture, you're on the go, head over to your quick capture page and capture it here in the note inbox. Or if it is a note that you know you're not going to need after, say, a month, you can toggle open this little fleeting notes toggle and add a note that is going to archive itself if it's not updated in over a month. So I've got this meeting with Tiago here. If I take notes on, say, a meeting I have with Tiago and we don't update this document in over a month, it's gonna get out of the fleeting notes here. It's gonna skedaddle out of there, keep that nice and clean, and it's going to come down to my archive page. So this is sort of like our safe dumping ground. We can physically archive things, purposefully do that, and I'll show you how to do that in the tutorial, or fleeting notes will just automatically put themselves here after a month of inactivity. So this is where things kind of go to die. They don't delete themselves. You're always going to be able to come find it if you need it, but it gets out of your hair and stays out of the more important areas that you're going to be visiting a lot more frequently. So that is what I would start doing. Start quick capturing things and then maybe start processing them and planning out your day. So let me show you a couple of ways that you could process your tasks first. The classic way to do it would be to go to your task inbox and add projects to anything that actually has a project. So set up invite links to circle for buyers. If I had a project called Ultimate Brain Launch, and look, I do launch Ultimate Brain template, I would add that task to that project. I might also have given it a due date, and I think I already did. So whenever the due date comes due, like within the next month, I'm gonna see it on that list as well. So if all you care about is getting tasks into their projects and getting them due dates, that's how you could process your tasks inside of Ultimate Brain using that plain old task inbox. There is another page called Process, which uses the getting things done style of task processing. And I'm going to be going over that in more detail in its own video because it kind of takes a little bit of explanation to actually show you how GTD works in general. So we're not going to go over too much in this video. If you do want to use GTD, again, there is a very in-depth call out here that explains it, and I'll also have a full video on that. You may also want to, check on anything that is cold. So this is kind of a special view. If you don't process your tasks in a long time, you give them a due date and they have been overdue for 14 days and you didn't give them a high priority, then you'll see those tasks here in the cold area. Again, this is a function to get stuff out of your hair, because if you add a task to your task list, you give it a due date and you don't do it within 2 weeks and you don't update it, then it's very likely that you didn't actually care about the task and it wasn't actually crucial. So again, it doesn't delete itself, but it gets out of your today, next 7 days, tomorrow views. So that way you can actually see the tasks that are due today and tomorrow instead of seeing just a ton of overdue tasks instead. So in 2 weeks, these overdue tasks are going to get out of here if I don't actually get them done or reschedule them. And that's kind of a feature that I really wanted, coming from using Todoist and Microsoft To Do and other things for years. My today views would often get just bombarded with tasks that I didn't have time, or I guess I was actually too lazy to process or do. So this kind of just does it for me. So that's tasks here. And then if you take notes on things, you can simply add them to your notes areas, or you can add them to areas and resources, which I'll explain in just a second. But this is your notes dashboard, and it consists of 5 main little areas plus your fleeting notes toggle, which is identical to the one in Quick Capture. First, you have your note inbox, and note, pun intended, that all of these headings are actually page links. And the same is true for your task manager here. And if we go over to dashboard, you'll note that you can toggle open an on-page view of all of these things, but you can also click directly into them. The reason I built the template this way is sometimes we use Notion on a desktop and sometimes we use Notion on a mobile phone. And on a phone, a simplified view that only shows one thing, especially in a list view, is just much easier to see and work with. And you can favorite these or add these to widgets and open up directly to them. Whereas on a desktop computer, we have a lot more real estate, especially if I close this sidebar, I can see a lot. So I might actually want to open up my note inbox. I might actually want to open up my task inbox and see things in a double column view. So in adding these views inside these toggles and inside their own pages, I'm giving you both options and the best of both worlds. So going back to our notes area, then hit Control / to get to it. And actually I can just get to it this way. I forgot about that. We have our note inbox. So again, if we add things in the quick capture area or we add things directly here to the inbox or to the inbox page, this is our sort of default spot for notes to fall. If we add a note, it's just going to be right here until we process it later on and give it a place to live. We can also add notes to our favorites. So here you will see in this Vocalfry note, for example, that I have checked the favorite checkbox. So anything with the favorite checkbox is going to show up in this favorites area, which is a great way to access notes that you're using quite often, such as this Barbell Academy notes, where I'm taking notes on a class that I'm going through. So that's a very useful area. And then recents, this is very reminiscent of Evernote, and I wanted it for myself. So this basically just shows all of the notes in your entire workspace, other than ones that you have actually archived. And they are sorted in the order that they were last updated. Now I've got a lot of notes that were updated very recently because I built out this demo area, so there was a lot of content just moved in. But as you update notes or take new notes, you're just gonna see the ones that you most recently worked on in this view, and you can load more and see basically everything. So that's very useful. And then, as you need, you can just take notes, such as a list of all the tutorials that you have to film for this template if you are me. And then we also have the areas and resources and our daily journal. So let me skip ahead and cover daily journal first. If you add a note here and you give it the daily note template, this becomes a little journal where you can plan your day, you can do some morning writing, and you can even review your day as well. So let's just give this the date, which is the 12th of April. And I've got some useful toggles here. I can check off some daily habits, and I could change the daily note template to change these habits if I wanted to. I can open up and see the My Day area, which I'll cover very soon. But I have a synced block showing the exact two little columns that I see in the My Day page. I can see my next 7 days. I can see my due next list, which is a GTD style list. So if I wanted to, if I was the journaling type, I could come in here and make a journal entry every single day. I could plan my day from this toggle, referencing my next 7 days or referencing my due next list. And I could also do some morning pages, which is basically just some unstructured writing that you do every day to get into the habit of actually writing. I could review my day at the end of the day and ask myself, like, how well did I stick to the day's plan? Did I actually do the self-care things I meant to do? Did I go to the gym? Did I eat well? Did I accomplish what I set out to do? That kind of thing. And as you make these journal entries, which are just tagged with the daily type, they are going to show up in the daily journal right here. So this just is a page that exists inside of Notes, which means, again, you can toggle open Notes in the sidebar and get to it that way. And the current day's journal entry will show here, but then all of your past journals will show up here. So you're going to have an easily accessed list that only shows you those past journal entries. And over time, you're going to get this great archive of everything you've journaled. So that's the daily journal function. And finally, we have a list that links to all of our areas and resources. So we can see the areas themselves, and we can see the resources. And when we are taking notes, we may want to add those notes to areas or resources. So let's talk a bit about what these are. Well, areas and resources are two terms from Tiago Forte's PARA organizational system. So PARA stands for Projects, Areas, Resources, and Archive. I've got a whole video with Tiago actually coming out on my main YouTube channel very soon. So that'll be like a half an hour of instruction on how this exactly works. But essentially, areas, and we've got a little blurb here, are a sphere of activity with a standard to be maintained over time. I like to think of areas as the buckets of my life. or the different mini identities that I embody. So I have things like College Info Geek, my business bucket, my health bucket, my music bucket. These are sort of like the main categories of my entire life. And they can contain resources. So resources are topics or themes of ongoing interest. These are just things that I'm interested in that maybe I want to take notes on, collect web resources on, read books on, that kind of thing. So you can have resources that don't exist inside of areas. So we have no root area here. I could just add any old resource I wanted to. I've got one on interior design. I've got one on productivity. This is just where I take notes or, again, collect web resources on interior design, for example. I've got 21 iconic mid-century modern chair designs that I pulled from a blog post via the Notion web clipper, and I just added it to my interior design resource. So what I can do over time is just start, sorting the content that comes into my system into these resources, and it's just going to be a great way to organize them. Or I can actually have resources inside of areas, and you can kind of see the logic here. So the health area of my life contains some resources that are a bit more specific, like fitness or nutrition. The music area of my life contains things like guitar or music production or singing. And I can see these here on this areas and resources page, but perhaps more usefully, is that even a word? Useful? I think it's a word. I can go into the area itself. And I just generate this page from the area template inside this database. And what this gives me is kind of a dashboard for this whole area of my life. I can see projects related to this area. I can see resources that are related to this area. I can even see goals related to this area. So anything relating to music in my life, I can sort of manage here. I can have goals like produce a full instrumental album. I can have these sub-resources like music production. And in here, I've got resources on soundproofing, on mastering, on studio design. I've pulled some web resources. And by the way, there is, as you can see, an all clips view of this, just that shows you everything, but also a by site view where you can see everything grouped by its base URL, which is really, really handy. So going back to music, this is essentially, again, just an area that I can see everything related to music. If I favorite a note, so inside of singing, I favorited the vocal fry note, it will also show up here in the favorites area of the entire area. If I go into the project, here's where I can actually manage this project, which is related again to the music area. So when you have time, you may want to go into your inboxes and tag your notes, tag projects if you add them, with the areas or the resources that they most align with. And in doing so, you're going to be cultivating this sort of garden of knowledge, as well as projects and goals and tasks over time that will come to represent your life and be that external system that you trust. And it's that sort of single source of truth. Going back, I'll show you one more example. Let's go back to the areas and resources page. We have this College Info Geek page. And we have an area called business finance. We have some goals like hitting $100,000 in template sales. And we have a couple of different projects. So that's sort of how areas work. So now let's talk about goals and projects. Well, these two are kind of similar things, right? A project usually has a goal, and goals usually have actions you have to take. So the difference in my head and the difference in the design here in the template is that a goal usually involves some sort of big transformation in your life, and it often has milestones that you can't take direct action to achieve. For example, hitting a 1,200 pound powerlifting total is a goal that I'm working on right now. And some of those milestones are things like hitting a 500 pound deadlift or 405 pound squat. I can't lift that much right now. So there is not an actionable task associated with 405 pound squat. And so therefore, this is a goal, but I may have projects associated with that goal. And the difference is, every single task in a project should be actionable. A project should simply be a collection of actionable tasks that have a common goal. So in here, I do have a project that is actually associated with this goal called set up a mini garage gym. And if I go into this project, I can see that I have a few different tasks, and all of these are actionable. I can sell the table in my garage to make some space. I can trade my big rack for a mini rack because I don't have as much space anymore. I can get rid of boxes. I can do all of these things, and they're going to help me to achieve the common goal of building that garage gym, which will help me to work out more consistently, which will help me to achieve my actual goal of hitting the 1,200 pound lifting total. Now, if I go back to areas and resources, I can go to my health area and I will see actually both my project, but also my goal. So I've associated the goal with this area and I've associated the project with this area. And now I have this whole area related to my health, and I can track my projects and I can track my goals. Now, one other thing you might want to do is to track ongoing or recurring tasks that align with an area. Well, let's go over to the College Info Geek area to show you how you might do this. In Ultimate Brain, to cut down on complexity and to cut down on the number of cells in the table views, tasks are not directly related to areas. They are related to projects. So what I do is I have a view called Ongoing, and there I create a project called Ongoing CIG Tasks. And this is where I could put recurring tasks, or just things that have to be done to basically, again, maintain the standard of the area, as Tiago would say, for the College Info Geek area. So here I've got Reconcile 0 and I've got Organize Studio, and these are due August 31st. I might also do something like pay Q1 estimated taxes. As an entrepreneur, I have to pay taxes every quarter to the government. So I'm going to make that due at the end of April. And I also actually want that to recur. So I'm going to give that a recur interval of 1 and a unit of years. That way it's going to recur every year. After I get it done this year, it'll come back around April 29th, 2023. We do have a tutorial on automating these recurring tasks in the Circle community. But we can also simply just move it to this date displayed in next due after we do it if we want to. So this is how I can sort of track tasks that are related more to the area than any specific project. I create an ongoing project for the area. Speaking of projects, you can also see all of your projects in the Project Hub, and we are showing them by status. So here are all my doing projects, to-do projects, ongoing, done, on hold. And you see them grouped by their area, but they don't have to have an area. You can actually give them no area if you want, and the same is true of resources, as I showed you earlier. And with goals, you can do the exact same thing. I have hidden the no area because I do think that goals should have an area. You should have a sort of defined area of your life, but if you really wanted to, you could have a goal with no area and track it right here. You can also see your last 10 completed milestones, which sort of functions as a sort of motivating area. It's kind of like a little mini impossible list done area, which is just, I don't know, something that's nice to see, something that's motivating for me. I think that might be it in terms of how to actually use Ultimate Brain day to day. Actually, there is one more area that I haven't covered yet, or page that I haven't covered yet, and that's actually My Day. So let's talk about My Day now. This is where you can actually plan out your day, and you could treat this as sort of a go-to destination when you're planning out your day every single morning, or maybe late at night before you go to bed. And what this contains is, number one, this synced block, which contains 2 callouts, one for tasks and events and one for self-care. This is sort of a mini whiteboard. So behind my desk over there in the studio, actually, I have a giant whiteboard, and often I like to just write out the tasks that I intend to get done today. So it's just this clean, minimalist space where I don't see everything else. I don't see all my task views. I don't see all my cold tasks, everything like that. I just see everything that I think I'm gonna get done today. This is a virtual whiteboard where you can come in the morning, you can clear this out. If it's old from the previous day, you can add the things you plan on doing, and you can also do the same for self-care. And I very specifically put self-care here as its own thing because personally, as an entrepreneur, I get busy. I often skip my self-care items because I'm working late and I'm doing support emails at like 11 p.m. sometimes. So I have to actually tell myself, go out for a 30-minute walk, which I've actually done. Drink 2 bottles of water, which I haven't done yet today. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that later after I film this video. I think it's important to separate these things and to basically state that they are prioritized just as much as these work tasks. Otherwise, they often get thrown by the wayside because we find it very easy to justify not keeping up with our health on a day-to-day basis because these things feel so much more urgent. But it's important to actually keep these things top of mind as well. Now, to plan this out, you can come down here to the upcoming tasks area and you can see a few different views. We have the calendar. So if you've given a task an actual due date, you can see those due dates here, and they will be a little bit easier to read if I close that sidebar. And if you're using a GTD style method of processing your tasks, you will also have access to your do next lists here. So do next lists, to give you a bit of a taste of GTD, are tasks that you need to do soon, but that don't have a specific due date that they must be done by. So they are prioritized, but they don't have to be done, say, today or next Friday. So you could look at that, you could look at your calendar, and you could reference those to create your My Day area. You have access to your daily journal here as well. And projects that you have marked as priority will show here in the priority projects area as well. So to mark a project as priority, you would just check that checkbox. And if you don't see it there, it's because it's hidden by default unless it's checked. So open up those properties, check it, and you will see it right here in priority projects. So this is a great place to plan your day. And speaking of planning, there is actually one more area that I want to go over, and that is the plan page in Ultimate Brain. So plan is where, number one, you can write out your priorities in plain text like I have here. It's a great way to just state what they are. You can also see what's coming up this quarter, what projects are in progress, and what goals you're working on. And you can look ahead. You can see what's going on in Q2, which actually is now. If you have anything in Q3, you can see what's going on there. So you can sort of sit down and plan out your year in terms of quarters if you want. And this implicitly shows you, sort of a month view as well. You can see the target deadlines for these goals. So I know this is basically what's going on in April because it's the only thing with a target deadline in April in terms of projects. So maybe once a week, once a month, you sit down, you look at this page and you see what's going on in my life. Do I need to move something? Do I need to update some target deadlines? Do I need to basically bring this system back into alignment with how my life is actually going? But in terms of a day-to-day usage, to give you a summary here, capture anything that needs to be captured in the quick capture area, and then use your inboxes, task inbox, the note inbox, or if you really want to, the process area to add projects, to add smart lists to your tasks, to add areas and resources when you get time to sit down and do some organization. From there, whenever you need to reference anything, of course, you can always use Notion's search, but you could also come into your notes area, check that recents area, check your favorites, or go straight to your areas or resources and reference anything you need to reference directly from there. So hopefully this gives you a bit more clarity on how you might actually use Ultimate Brain on a day-to-day basis. This is how I'll be using it. And once again, I want to remind you that this tool is built for you and your workflow. It's built to be flexible. So just because I would do things one way, like say using GTD, doesn't mean you have to. But I do encourage you to experiment and see what works best for you. Thanks for watching. Let me know what your questions are in the support area, and I'll see you in the next tutorial video.